Hi, this is Brian Stevens from SPYPOINT, and I'm excited to talk with Stephen Fuller today, host of the Huntin Grounds. Stephen is from Southwest Missouri and has built a huge following educating hunters and land managers through his digital video series. Here's Stephen. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the SPYPOINT podcast. I'm your host, Brian Stevens, and on this show, we get to talk about hunting, tactics, technology, and the inside scoop from industry pros. Follow along each month as we learn, laugh, and grow together with the passion we all have for the outdoors. This is the SPYPOINT podcast. Hey, Stephen, welcome to the podcast today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here. It's nice and warm down in this neck of the woods, so taking a break right now talking to you guys is nice.
Excellent. Where exactly are you at?
I'm in the very southwest corner of Missouri, so right in the Ozark Hill country. Big hills, steep hills, lots of rocks.
Beautiful. Okay, that's beautiful country. Beautiful
Yeah,
country.
It's got some of the best views around and some of the toughest deer hunting, that's for sure.
Listen, Billy and I years ago hunted and got invited to hunt up in that area, and you're not kidding. It looks pretty, but it's some tough deer hunting.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
And if you shoot something, I mean, the work only begins then trying to get them out.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those big hills and cliffs.
Yep, everything runs downhill here, so be prepared to drag it uphill, or you better have a UTV or ATV or something to get down in there.
No, absolutely. So what do you got going on right now? What's going on in your world?
Honestly, right now, just this week finished up my spring and summer food plots, so just got them in the ground. I had some of them planted a few weeks ago, and then just kind of was late on a little bit of seed, so I was waiting, and we kind of got a dry spell, but we've got rain coming in, so just finished those up. Been working really pretty hardcore this spring on just doing a lot of land management improvements, so doing a lot of edge feathering, TSI, really trying to build up just the native habitat, opposed to just doing the food plots, so really working on that and kind of getting to a point right now where I'm at a stopping point, so now it's full-fledged, putting minerals out, putting cameras out. A lot of our bucks are now, getting some antler growth on them where you're starting to be able to tell what they're hopefully going to look like this season. So putting a lot of cameras out everywhere right now.
No, that's great. And listen, I know, people have, followed you with your, social media and digital platform, the Hunting Grounds, and there's a ton of information I know that you share on a regular basis. And, a couple of things I'd love to, pick your brain about today is, specifically around food plots and how are they different when it comes to fall food plots versus spring. So you've just talked a little bit about the spring food plot. How is that different than what you typically do in the fall?
Yeah, so the mixes is for one that's going to be different. Right now I'm putting stuff out there such as like cowpea and soybeans and buckwheat. A lot of that stuff that does grow during the summer and the spring months, really, really good to just provide a lot of tonnage. So I've got that. Some of those will stick around where, some of the soybean pods and stuff, I'll have them for the fall to hunt over. But a lot of those food plots, I'm going to work right back into the ground. I'm going to go back in and I want to be putting a lot of wheat and rye and probably turnips and rape, trying to get a lot of that tonnage that's going to last me throughout the entire hunting season. So right now, basically just pouring a lot of tonnage into them, stuff that's highly digestible, stuff that they really want to come in and eat, and getting them established in those areas. Now, I never will, what they say is, I'll never empty the plate. So I'm never going to go in and plant a food plot and then come back in and completely wipe it out and then replant it. So I'm pretty strategic on how I design these food plots to leave certain portions. So there's always food there. There's always something to attract them there. I'm never spooking them out to my neighbors, because you do that during the critical time and they might just pick up staying over at your neighbors, and then hunting season comes in and then the big buck that you've been watching all summer is now patterned over there because they will do that. So that's mainly the gist of it right now.
Okay. Thank you. So when you think
Yeah.
about fall food plots, I just know some people have different strategies, and it varies based on where you're at in the country. But you'll do some work now in June, July. Get some of those peas, high protein type of seeds in, and then that will run its course. Will you turn that over and get a different type of seed in there, so that way when that first freeze comes, or after the rut, when they're looking for more of a higher carbohydrate or a higher energy type of seed, will you turn that over in the fall for that type of feeding scenario?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like I said, a lot of what I'm planting right now does have a lot of soybeans in it, which is great. Down here in the Southwest, we just really don't have winters right now. We've not had winters for,
Hmm.
probably 10 plus years. And so to come in to have a standing field of bean pods during the winter is not as attractive as you would think. I'd rather have a lot of green
Yeah.
tonnage out there. I'd rather have that rape and that turnip and the rye and the wheat. And so I will. I'm going to come back in and I'll probably take out 50% of my food plot, and it'll be strategic. I'll try to plant those more so. When I'm planting those greens, I'll come back in and I'll plant them closer around my blinds. I'll plant them closer to where I've got my tree stands located on that food plot to really kind of concentrate those deer where they're going to come in. It's going to be hopefully within bow range or within gun range for sure. But yeah, I'll go in there and I'll terminate a lot of the crops and replant them specifically for fall. And then one thing that I also do too is, just speaking about food plots, is I do a lot of stuff with the borders and stuff. So you got a lot of sorghum mixes and stuff like that we use from one of the companies that we work with, and we're planting barriers around and we're designing borders to really transition and kind of funnel those deer down to where we want them to go in these food plots. So if we have a larger food plot, say we've got a 4 acre food plot, you don't have a tree in the middle of that food plot, it can be hard to get a deer within that 30-yard bow range or so. And so what we do is, using these border mixes basically, is we really have it designed where these deer are pretty much made to funnel the way we want them to through these food plots. And it's broken up enough too where, say for instance, we got these 4.5 acre food plot or so. A buck is not going to be able to come in on one end of the food plot and look over the whole food plot and go, "Yep, yeah, there's no doe in there for me. I'm
Yep.
out." And so what we'll divide it up, and then he's got curiosity. He goes,
Yep.
"What is on the other side of that?" Well, I'm on the other side of it. He just doesn't know it, but it's going to make him work all the way through that food plot and give you more opportunities. So, yeah, there's a lot that really goes in. I've really kind of gone nuts on far as designing the food plot. It's really a buffet for me. I mean, it's almost like it's sectioned up into different dinner plates out there. I've got, brassicas over here, and then we got some soybeans over here, and it's divided, and it's pretty dang cool. But I enjoy it, and it's really cool to see how the deer work in that stuff.
No, listen, and you can tell. I mean, you got clearly a lot of passion for this, and the other thing that I've learned over the years too is when those borders not only are good for the deer, but it's also good for you as you think about how you're going to enter and exit that food plot, especially if you're hunting a large food plot, and even if you have a tower blind. I mean, you got to be able to slip in and slip out and those deer not see you, because if you got a big food plot, you're typically going to have a lot of eyeballs on there. So those barrier type of seeds that grow up, not only for the deer, but I think I've used those as ways to create entrance and exit routes in and out of the stand.
100% agree with you there. Yeah, that's a critical part of what I do with those things, and that's, you've got to plant those. Those are sorghums. Those love to grow in the summer heat, and you've got to get them in now, kind of deal, to get them to the full potential. Because depending on the species that you're planting, you're going to have 6 to 12 foot, maybe
Yeah.
even more growth out of that, and you really need that summertime growth for that. And so that goes into a lot of what I've been doing right now. So even with the barrier systems in my food plots, I've established ways with them to get to all my blinds and all my stands. It's pretty dang cool what it allows you to get by with. Once you plant them around the edge, if you got to slip in, or even like one of my properties, I'll plant a full border around it because I honestly have to get to my stand that is past that to another spot on my property, but I have to pass that food plot. And if there's deer in it or whatever, I don't want to booger them out of there or pressure them, but it allows me to slip right by them. So many times I've made it to my blind And I've had deer within 30 yards of me when I'm climbing up in there, but they have no clue. So
Yeah. No, that's good, and that's a good feeling. I mean, that's, there's nothing worse getting to or on the way to the stand and getting blown out before you even get in there. It's so that's a great strategy. So let's talk about stand placement. Whether you're hunting a box blind, or it sounds like you do. If you're doing a lot of bow hunting, you're hunting out of probably a lock on or some type of elevated stand. How do you think about your stand placement based on the food plot and the barrier system? And obviously you got to factor in wind. What's your strategy around that?
Oh man, so that goes in. There's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of it too is just success and failures there. Like you just got to go by seasons and what you've learned from one season to the next. Now here I manage a lot of different properties, but the hunting grounds where I really educate people on is about 100 acres, and it's a very long, narrow 100 acres, and it's all, like I said, it's Ozark Hill country. So majority of all our food plots are on top of ridges. That's where we can control the wind a little bit better, and makes it some tough hunting for sure. But you've got to be strategic on stand placement, which is mainly going to be on these ridges, pinch points. And I've been managing this portion or this property now for probably close to 4 years. And you really get to be pretty intimate with your property, where I know where the deer are going to come out every single time. A lot of factors go into that too. I mean, it just depends on what you're doing on your property. If you're doing TSI, you can really improve even the edges of your food plot by doing some edge feathering and stuff, and really transition those deer to kind of come out in certain areas of the food plot that you want. And then maybe you've only got one good mature tree that you can put a stand in. So you can really, like, by planting borders or doing some edge feathering or whatever you're doing, you can funnel them deer hopefully within a bow range of that stand. Here, it's been nice. I got the choice, for the stands. I can put them just about anywhere I want to. And so utilizing the cameras, figuring out where these deer are coming in all the time, 3 or 4 years of hunting this property has allowed me to go, okay, 90% of the time they're going to come out in that corner.
Gotcha.
I need to have a stand over there. And with what we're doing here with all these steep ridges and stuff, a lot of times, definitely you gotta watch that wind. I'll put that stand up where most of my wind is just going to be blowing straight almost off a bluff side, where even if the deer came in like down below me, as long as my thermals are all right, like they're going to be 30, 40, 50, 60 feet depending on how steep it is below me anyway, so there's no way my wind column's even going to get down there. But and then blinds around here, I do have mainly tower blinds, so anything from 6 foot tall to, I think, 10 foot tall is the tallest one that I have. I will have them throughout the property because we have to utilize them. I mean, you can use a blind around here, but with our topography, you put a blind out on flat ground, there might be a chance that 30 yards out you can't see the deer because of the slope in the hill or the decline or something. So using those elevated blinds helps us a lot. And there's some spots too, if anybody watches this show, they'll see, and sometimes I'll get some little hate for it, but they'll see a blind out in the middle of a field. But I've got a border planted all the way around it with basically it's a little funnel way for me to walk through all the way to that blind. But I've got to put it in the middle of some of these fields just because of the steep topography. It allows me to see down certain hill slopes that I wouldn't be able to see if I was back in the wood line with these blinds. A lot goes into the placement, but
no, and that's, listen, you made a comment about, getting a little bit of hate. At the end of the day, it's less about how it looks and more about functionality. And I think if people will kind of open their minds and be less critical and feel like it has to look a certain way, at the end of the day, you're putting all this work in to harvest, sometimes just one particular animal. And that animal's smart, and you have to outthink them, and it's hard. And so it's less about how it looks and more about functionality to get the job done. And I think if people would think a little bit more like that sometimes, and be willing to be, flexible and open-minded, then, you may have a little bit more success. Listen, I had that mentality years ago, and until you make mistakes and figure out, why can't I kill this deer? And then you just kind of open your mind a little bit and be a little more strategic. And then, oh my gosh, look what happens.
Yeah, right. I agree with that.
Visit spypoint.com/project to catch up on any of the podcast episodes you may have missed. Catch the latest episodes from the Spy Point Habitat and Hunting series, Building Whitetails and Game Changers, or read the latest blogs covering everything in the great outdoors. Project Spy Point is everything you want from the outdoors in one place. spypoint.com/project. So when do you make changes to your stands? Is it just based on a wind shift? Is it obviously a different pattern of the deer? When do you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to move my stand for a particular reason?
I think that's a great question, and that oftentimes a lot of people are pretty stuck on a certain way of doing something with that. And that's basically, a lot of people put their stand sides up and they believe like, just don't touch it, don't move it, you're going to disturb the area. And I'll tell you what, I've been really successful over the years in harvesting a lot of good deer and getting people on deer. And a key thing for me is to be flexible. Like, deer are going to change patterns. They're going to, and sometimes it's just going to be on the whim. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it whatsoever. Some of it's depending on, their food sources are changing. They're going from acorns to they're finally going to hit my turnips in the food plot, or who knows what it may be. They might be getting pressured from a neighboring property and they're going to move to kind of a different area on your property. So I move my stand whenever I need to throughout the season. And I like to go in there. If I am doing it in the middle of the season, I'm going to go in there during a time that it's not really going to bother the deer. So if it's a hot day and I can go in the middle of the day and I know the deer aren't going to be in there, I'm going to spray down. I'm going to get in there and move that stand as quick as possible, doing as little disturbance as possible. And then I might not even hunt it that day, might give it a week or whatever. But I'm going to move those stands as soon as I need to move them, period, because you have to be flexible when it comes to hunting these whitetails and making sure that you're on deer. Like, it's allowed me to, every time that I go out, I see more deer than than a lot of people probably see in a whole season. But it's because I'm always moving. Like, I am never just going, I've got to stand on the back 40 over there, I'm just going to go sit in there. I'm not okay with not seeing deer. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to move cameras. I'm going to move stands. I'm going to do whatever I've got to do to get on top of those deer wherever they're at.
Now, that's great feedback. And listen, everybody's got a different style, but, at the end of the day, I think you said it. I mean, you want to see deer. And again, if you're hunting a particular animal, you've got to use every resource that you can to get to that animal, find them, and then move your setup to be able to hunt that deer, because he may shift his pattern, and you got to be willing to adjust and be flexible. And I think that the key word is being flexible, and you nailed that. So let's shift and think about, we're getting to summer. It's almost the end of June, or we're at July. It's not too late to do something. I know you have that mentality. So what are some of the things beyond, the food plots that you're putting in right now that people can do to get prepared for this fall? And, whether it's, some people are just going to focus on the rut. A lot of people are going to hunt that early season, that September, October timeframe. What are some things people could do right now to get prepared for that first part of the season?
I'll tell you what, if people want to see deer, that's what I love getting out and doing. Like, I like sitting in a tree stand, making sure that I'm seeing deer the whole time. Don't get me wrong, I like to see the big bucks too, and get pretty lucky on seeing a lot of good bucks. But right now is the time that's going to probably make or break people's season. So right now, if people don't have the capability of doing any kind of management, they're just hunting public land, then get out and put out cameras. Put out any kind of whatever it's legal for you to put out as far as attractants to get deer on camera. Start scouting right now, because it's going to make or break your season. It could make it where you have one of the best seasons of your life if you are finding the deer right now. But as far as like management wise, which is what I'm all about, for as little as about $5, if you've got a chainsaw and you can put some gas in it and you can put some oil in it, and you can get out and do some TSI. And that means going in and doing some timber stand improvement. And, maybe it's around one of your food plots you've got. I can't tell you the amount of change that it will bring to your food plot if you go around and you edge feather. So you're taking out.
Tell people what edge feathering is. Some people may not know what that is.
So basically, instead of going like, say you've got a great little food plot and you're coming from a mature timber stand of 30, 40 foot tall trees and straight into a food plot. So there's no variable change in there that goes anywhere from like grasses to forbs to saplings, then to mature timber stand. Deer are edge creatures. Turkeys are edge creatures. Quail are edge creatures. Everything loves edge. It provides browse. It provides bedding. And so what you can do is go around edge feather. So you're going to take out a lot of those trees, just lay them over. You can hack and spray them if you want to and use Tordon, or we can cut them down and use Tordon. Tordon is just a herbicide that's going to just kill that. That way you still aren't getting that root competition, and it's going to take away from, promoting grasses and forbs and stuff from growing. But you want to create that barrier. And I'll tell you, that's been the biggest change on my property, is not just, sure, you've got destination food plots. And if you make a great food plot, deer are going to come in from a long ways off. But as the season progresses and you lose that greenery in a mature timber stand that's not had any TSI done, those deer are going to be coming. They were doing it on my property. They were coming from over half a mile or even 3/4 of a mile away to come in there because I didn't have bedding close by. And so by going in, doing timber stand improvements around the food plot, doing edge feathering, now I've got those deer now bedded within like 30 yards of my food plot. So they're in there, they're browsing, they're feeding, they're bedding. It's got cover for does to go hide in, which bucks are going to come in and start searching because they know that cover's there. It's going to improve your food plot drastically. And like I said, if you can put gas and oil in a chainsaw and you can run one tank, I can't tell you how much I can get done in one tank in there. And you will see drastic improvements. You can go through and you can put one of your SPYPOINT cameras up directly after cutting some edge feathering. I can promise you that night deer are going to be in there browsing, and they're going to make a home in there. Then you've built something now that's going to, like I said, it's going to hold your deer on your property year round versus just during the times that they're coming in there to eat the food plots, or having to travel all the way in or whatever. But that's the biggest change I think people can do is right now is, don't be scared that you're going to get in there and you're going to bust out your bucks. Like you might pressure them, you might scare them out for a day, or they're going to be in the area. And as you improve that, it's going to improve your season for the long run. So I think that's what has made me really successful, is with all the improvements that I now make, is I don't just have a great hunt early season, and then as season progresses, my deer hunts get worse because my deer get fewer and far between. No, now I'm holding the deer all the time. So it doesn't matter if I've got youth hunt coming up, or if I got buddies coming up, or a hunt winter coming in. I can guarantee that somebody's going to see bucks and a lot of deer every single time they're out there, period.
Yep. No, that's great feedback. And, that I think also does too is allows you to go in and if you do want to put up more stands, and if you're going to put up, some type of tower blind, now's the time to do that. Give those deer plenty of time to get used to it. And, and it's just that way when you slip into August, September, it's just, they're super comfortable. They're in their patterns. They're doing their thing. You get the wind right, and you can slip in. And, over the years, I've shot some of my bigger deer in that earlier part of the season just because they're in a pattern and they're not spooked. And, those mature bucks, just have less reason to be, overly cautious. And, it's all what you do right now. So that's great feedback.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think some of my favorite times is probably early season to hunt or really, really late season. Don't get me wrong, the rut and stuff is great, and you can get some big bruisers up on their feet. But when you've done the work, and it sounds like you have too, when you do the management side of things and you're benefiting from that, that early season, late season, when you've got all the food and you've got the unpressured property, can be really, really great time to be in the stand.
Well, and, listen, Caleb and I over the last couple of years, the rut's been kind of tough. And you may have seen that same thing, and it's all dependent on weather and different variables, and you may not time it right. But, I do think that early season and late season do get overlooked because you're typically going to have a consistent weather pattern in both of those scenarios. And those deer, especially early season, are just less pressured. And that's one of the biggest things that, I've learned over the years is no matter what property is, that human hunting pressure can do more or good to your ability to shoot a mature animal. And so you just typically don't have that hunting pressure and educated deer that early part of the season, and that in the late part of the season too. I mean, they're very hungry and they're going to be more patternable, but
right.
That early season just sometimes gets overlooked and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
So listen, great feedback. Let people know about, what you have personally planned. You do a ton of educating and, you obviously have, a huge following with your digital platform, but, along with that, what are some of the other things that you've got planned and that your fans can look forward to?
Well, so we'll still continue doing our management series. So that's what we're getting into right now. So you'll be able to you can find it on our Facebook at the Huntin Grounds, or we also put it on our YouTube channel, and that you can just look up the Huntin Grounds there. And then on Instagram, we're at THGTV. But we're going to continue doing the management series. So we're going to do a lot of timber stand improvements. We're going to go break down like why our food plots are working the way they are. We're going to basically just give you a lot of information. Like we're 365-day a year show. So we'll do management up to deer season, and then we do semi-live deer hunts. So as we get in deer season, the deer hunts that you're watching on our channel are like of that week or the week prior. So they aren't very old. We're going to be able to do that. And then we'll be putting out a ton of content. So we're actually thinking about kind of doing a podcast ourselves and more the informative side of what we do, kind of behind the scenes, just to give people more of a look of what we do in the day-of-day kind of things, because there's a lot that goes on. So trying to bring people into that real life scenario. But yeah, we're going to be producing a lot of content, and a lot of it's management right now. But as we get into hunting season, it's going to be nothing but hunting during then.
No, that's exciting. Let me ask, how did you get started in doing all of this? Give a little bit about your background and, what led you down this path to really take on this. Obviously, you got a love of hunting, but more of the education management side of things.
Yeah. Well, I think God put me on the path that I'm on. I'll tell you that I've got my degrees in conservation wildlife management and field biology and then communication arts, and just have honestly, probably since the age of probably about 13, before management was even a thing, I was going out there and realizing that, hey, I can brush hog trails and I can clear out this thicket, and deer are utilizing this new growth and green growth and bedding in here. So I've been doing it a long time, and I just really wanted to get people cost-effective like management techniques for smaller property, because I think that's overlooked. I think the people that have smaller properties and a shallow pocket are kind of overlooked, and I wanted to have a video series that kind of went along with that. And so that's what I do now. I do that pretty much full time. Everything. I don't think anybody that I really know gets fully 100% just go kill animals for a living. So there's a lot that comes underneath the Huntin Grounds umbrella. I do a lot of producing for TV commercials and informational videos for sponsors, and it's just there's a lot that goes underneath all that. But that's kind of where I'm at. I just wanted to reach out and connect with people. And if I impacted one person and helped one person positively, I did that. I've been doing this 10 years and 10 years of video. And then with the last 2 to 3 years, been doing it full time. So been blessed to do it. I love doing it, and hopefully we'll do it for a very long time, but we'll see how that goes.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Let me ask you this. I mean, what is somebody that's, getting into, bow hunting and has a little bit of property. And I think, the fact that you're focusing on smaller plots of land is a great thing, just because there are a lot of people, especially that bow hunt smaller pieces of property, and they can do some things to that to improve it. But, what are one or two things of somebody getting into this that, they've been bow hunting for a few years, they've now just gotten this, nice little plot and, property to be able to bow hunt. What are some of the things that they can do and instantly to increase their odds of, number one, seeing deer, and then once they find the deer, harvesting a mature animal?
So my answer's probably changed for that over the years. used to be like, put a food plot in. I think a food plot's great. It's kind of a candy, like it's a attractant. First and foremost, probably what I'm going to do if I get a new property, I'm going to put out mineral. I'm going to go put out mineral. I'm going to put a trail camera over it, and I'm going to see what deer I have on the property then. And then I'm going to start doing my research. And so I'm going to look at what deer I have on the property, and if they're more attractive to like my neighbor's property, and what's my neighbor property have that I don't have that's making theirs attractive. And then I'm probably going to go in and I'm going to start improving bedding. So what you really got to do is you got to have a way to hold those deer. So find that limiting factor in there, whether it's food, water, or shelter that you don't have, and make sure you've got that kind of trifecta of food, water, and shelter. And you're going to be able to hold more deer on your place. And then from that, you can expand. Then you can go, all right, I've now got all three of those things. Now, next year, I think I'm going to work on putting in a food plot. And then the next year, I'm going to go through and I'm going to edge feather. Then I'm going to start improving my timber. Just come up with a game plan, and slowly but surely, you will probably have a hot spot. I mean, I've done it with properties as small as 10 to 15 acres that we were excited to see a spike, and then within a few years, we're consistently killing 130s, 140s off of it. And so you can build it, and they will come. That's a for sure deal.
No, listen, that's great feedback in it, and I think too, not being afraid to having a 2 or 3 year plan. What can you do year one? And then what can you do your, 2 and 3, and then, and sometimes even, when you think about putting in, an apple tree or, persimmon or, a peach tree, any of those little things. I mean, that's not going to grow overnight, but those can be a huge attractant. If you can't feed in a particular, state, you can use some of those natural, resources to plant, and, it's going to be a longer term scenario. But don't be afraid to have a plan that you accomplish things year 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then at the end of 5 years, which is going to come and go, you can look back and you have just an incredible property.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think we're a society now that we like instant gratification. Don't get me wrong, I do too. But you can't, and I'm always an overachiever. I get a property, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And it's way too much for me to do in a single year. And you can get into a thing too where you're working your property too much and too long, that you're going to pressure those deer off of there for that year, and then you don't have your deer numbers, and it can be frustrating. So that's why I always tell people, like, do little bits of what you can, because you're not going to have like instant results of like, I'm going to go out and put in a food plot and I'm going to have a 160 incher in there. Like, it takes time to build, but I can promise you, if you build it over that time span, like you get to where I'm at right now, I'm on a sweet spot on my property now. 4 years into it, I got so many deer. We've got so many bucks. Like, it is a fun place to hunt. You can go out and watch deer every single time and have deer encounters every single time. And that's what it's all about to me. But it didn't happen in year one, and there's no way it all could have happened in year one. It takes time.
No, that's great feedback. So tell everybody where they can find, some of your content. Where can they go find it?
So Facebook's huge for us. Just look up the Huntin Grounds. I'm from Arkansas, so I say hunting, not hunting. So it's no G on the end of hunting.
Okay.
But yeah, so you can go on Facebook, Instagram's at THGTV, YouTube, look up the Huntin Grounds on there. And then we've got a website as well, www.thg-tv.com.
Good deal. Well, listen, Stephen, man, it's been a pleasure. You obviously have, an incredible passion for this, a great deal of knowledge, and I love the fact that you're willing to share it with people and just help them improve what they're doing. So I wish you the best, this summer and leading into the fall, and I look forward to catching up soon and getting some pictures of those bucks you get on the ground this year, my brother.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. It was fun tuning in with you guys.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too.
Don't forget to visit spypoint.com/project for all the latest from Project SPYPOINT. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for all the latest on SPYPOINT trail cameras and the outdoors.